there, and welcome to the Fearless Artist Podcast, where we empower classical musicians to build their own thriving careers. I'm your host, Michelle Lynn, and together with Deanna Petre, we teach artists to conquer the entrepreneurial side of their careers and create the futures they want. We are two freelance classical musicians who have lived and worked in Europe for a decade, and together we started the Fearless Artist Mastermind, a coaching company created to teach classical musicians how to overcome fear and take action on building their dream careers. In each episode, we will explore the intersection of artistry and entrepreneurship, teaching you the fearless mindset with practical steps and strategies to build a sustainable career. Get ready to build your own artistic brand, find a supportive community of musicians so that you don't have to figure out everything alone, and earn a living that you deserve. We believe that you can be a thriving artist and not a starving one, and we are redefining what it means to be a classical musician in the modern era. Welcome, Ben Bliss, to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Yes, I'm excited to chat with you because you have just come out with a brand new book.
Yes.
And I found a reel of yours, I think 2 weeks ago, and it was talking about how you can get paid a lot of money for a production, opera production, and then leave with basically pennies. And that obviously caught my attention because of the work we do here at the Fearless Artist. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Ben Bliss, and I'm a professional opera singer, a freelance soloist. I work with different companies all over the world, singing roles, and I have kind of a unique path to this career. I grew up in a very musical household where there are lots of singers around, and kind of describe it as music and singing and harmony being the second language spoken in my house. Then I went to film
Wow.
school, did some opera in college, kind of for fun. Worked on the Dr. Phil show for 3 years after I graduated, and that I don't know.
That's a claim to fame.
Well, like I said, it is a unique path. But the joke I always have there is that working for Dr. Phil was so soul crushing that I decided to pivot to an industry that peaked 200 years ago. Um, but I always really enjoyed singing and thought that I could have a future in it. And so, yeah, I was a young artist at Los Angeles Opera and also at the Met, and I've been out there freelancing since 2015. And I guess if some of your audience is more on the instrumental side, it's probably worth acknowledging that the structure of how the business works for a freelance opera singer is that, basically you go out and you audition a bunch, you get a little bit of work at small companies doing understudies or small roles. At some point, you add an agent to the mix. And then at this stage of the career, basically opera schedules 2, 3, 4 years in advance, because I don't know, it's complicated. So yeah, you get gig offers and negotiate and accept or decline a couple years in advance, and then you go to my next gig is in Berlin. It's a relatively short contract. It's 4 weeks, and then after that, I'll do 8 weeks at the Met and 5 weeks in Munich and onward like that. So, and I guess the other important part is that we pay all of our own expenses, basically. So most of the gigs I do, they'll say we're going to give you 10 grand. I'm responsible for paying taxes in the country where I work in the United States, for my flights, for my preparation, for my Airbnb, for my food, my transportation, everything. And not to jump the shark here, but that's one of the aspects of the opera career that no one prepares you for. No one tells you that when you go work in Italy, that Italy is going to keep 30% of the money you earn there. And too many people, unfortunately, find that out when they come home in debt from a lucrative job.
That's crazy. Are there no tax agreements between the US and Italy, for example?
Well, this is the part of my book that I had to spend the most time researching. A lot of
Okay.
the book is written from my own experience about the different challenges and hurdles that you face as a freelance performer. But the taxes are quite complex. Many countries do have tax agreements with the United States, but essentially it only basically if you are a performer or an athlete, there are exclusions written specifically for performers and athletes, which means you will still be responsible for the taxes in the city, state, country where you perform. The only other agreement they have is if you supply what's called a certificate of coverage. If you can prove that you pay into Social Security in the United States, then you can be excluded from paying into the Social Security equivalent in any other country that you work in. But not all countries have those agreements with the U.S., and no one tells you that you can save that money by providing a certificate of coverage. But now you know.
Okay, so the people who are hiring you for the show are not telling you make sure you have your social security proof of payment for the states to avoid this here.
Very often, the foreign companies will not mention that because, they're running an opera company in Switzerland. It's not their job to be an international tax aficionado.
Yeah.
And your agent often falls into that same category. It's great if they know, and if they don't, it's likely that you won't either. Their job is to, get you the job, produce the opera, not handle your budget or any of your taxes for you,
Or take care
unfortunately.
of you and get you lodging and put you up and pay and, get you food and a per diem and all of these great things.
Exactly.
So was that the catalyst for you writing this book? Because I know a lot of people have this situation and not everyone spends hours and weeks and months writing. So what was your motivation behind this?
Yeah, I mean, it was really twofold. On the one hand, I love singing and performing, but the opera lifestyle is that, I'm on the road 6, 8, 9, 10 months a year, which has its upsides. But, after a decade, you start to think, it'd be nice to have a bar or a yoga studio where they know my name and, have a,
A
a,
bar.
a pet that I could
Right.
regularly feed or keep a plant alive. So that's more the personal side. It would be great to, kind of have a little more flexibility in the income part of my life. But really, what it was is I had 2 jobs back to back in Paris in the winter, so there wasn't a lot to do outside because it's too dark and gray and cold and wet. Um, and so I was doing a budget for my gig at the Paris Opera, and I realized I didn't know what the French non-resident tax withholding rate was. So I was like, well, is 5% of my pay going to go to the French government, or is it 50? How do I do a budget? My agent didn't know. My colleagues didn't know. I got a couple different answers from the opera house, so I figured, look, I got to research this. Maybe I can put together a list of all of the countries in Europe where freelance performers are likely to work and find the tax rate for all of them and help people out. And then that list turned into, well, how do I get an agent? How do I manage that relationship? How do I budget a gig? If I'm traveling all the time, how do I do insurance? How do I invest? How do I manage relationships on the road? And the list turned into, you know, 200-page book about all the things we didn't learn about being a freelancer in school.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So at what point did you find out how much the French government was gonna keep from you?
It was one of the first things I did, and it's amazing how long it took. And I basically wrote the whole book, and then last summer I was like, okay, the last part. Let's dig into this international tax section. And I spent probably 6 months on it, calling foreign CPAs and the payroll departments at opera companies and agents and singers and scouring Google. Because one of the other tricky things is that, uh, as we do in many different little parts of life, we really fall between the cracks. Because when I go work in France, I'm not really a freelancer because I'm not going to France to sell tickets to my show and rent a theater. I'm working for the Paris Opera in this example, but I'm also
They've
not.
contracted you.
Yes, but I'm
Yeah,
also not really an employee of the Paris
right.
Opera. So if you Google non-resident self-employment tax withholding, you won't find it. And if you Google, non-resident French employee, you won't find it. It really falls between the cracks, kind of like insurance. If I'm going to buy health insurance, but I'm out of the United States for 7 months next year, I'm going to be paying several $100s a month for insurance that I cannot use for 7 months out of the year. That's crazy. And there are a lot of things like that. And so that's
You
yeah,
mean your
whatever.
US healthcare that you won't use because 'cause you're out
Yeah,
of the okay,
yeah,
okay, not your
correct.
travel healthcare.
But yeah, and of course that's a
Right.
whole other thing, getting travel insurance for your travel itself and the healthcare. And it's unfortunate that we can't all just say, gosh, I just really want to be a great singer or actor, dancer, comic, instrumentalist, whatever. You have to do that. But the thing is, you have to handle all of this other stuff too, because if you don't, um, I don't know, to me, it's like a fear thing. I feel like I have an interesting relationship with fear. Fear sometimes is like this big, dark cloud behind you, and you don't want to look at it. But oftentimes, if you do, if you just turn around and look right at it, there's nothing there. It's mostly in your head. And when you turn around and look at what you're afraid of and there is something there, you go, oh, what's the worst that can happen? 99% of the time, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. And the 1% of the time it is really bad, you're like, well, that's probably going to happen eventually anyway. And I know I have to handle it. So, and then all of a sudden, there's no fear, you know? So
But the worst thing that can happen is that you come out of a gig with no money.
yeah, yeah,
That's
or
what you're trying
in
to avoid
debt.
by not looking into how much they're actually going to keep from you in France.
Absolutely, yeah, and I mean, sometimes you get one of these gig offers and it looks like a lot of money, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
$10,000 is a lot of money, but if you're working in Italy, it's $7,000 right off the bat because 'cause they're gonna keep 30%, and then you gotta pay for your Airbnb, your flight, you gotta pay 15% or 15% self-employment tax in the US minimum, state and local taxes, all this other stuff, and what often happens is that people see $10,000, they go out and they spend 5, 8, all 10, and then they come home realizing they owe $7,000 to the government and to Airbnb, and, that can derail a dream quickly, unfortunately.
Okay, so how have your fellow colleagues dealt with this?
I think in silence. I
Okay.
think that people don't really talk about this. People don't really talk about money and about taxes. There are colleagues I've known who've just seemed really kind of who are successful and who seem really stressed out and kind of antsy. And there have been a few times where I dug down deeper with them, and it turns out that nobody ever taught them how to do quarterly taxes, or that they had to take money out of their income for taxes, and they've been making couple $100,000 a year for a decade and they're in debt, and they don't see a way out. Um, so there's just too much of that. I think people also learn from experience, which in many arenas in life is the best way to learn, except when it comes to your money. Because learning from experience with your money means you're leaving money on the table that you should have had in your pocket, or better yet, in your retirement savings. So the idea is um, every freelance career is a small business. You have income, you have expenses, you have taxes, you have all the pieces of a small business. You need to advertise so many different things, and nobody teaches freelance classical musicians or freelance performers of any stripes anything about that. And of course, nobody goes to conservatory because they want to be a CEO or accountant. But the fact is, you will be the CEO of your freelance career. And if you ignore those responsibilities, they simply won't get done. And like any company, if the leader, if the person in charge, if the boss is ignoring their responsibilities, or worse yet, doesn't know what they are, that's a business that is certain to fail on some level. Um, and so, again, nobody went to conservatory to be a CEO, but the career in the freelance performing arts, a lot of it is out of your control. You have to audition and you have to wait to be accepted by people many times, or to get your opportunity. And in a career where so much of it is out of your control, it feels really good to control what you can control, which is to have a long
Mm.
term financial plan and be on top of your taxes and just kind of getting your money right. Because then that's a big piece of your bandwidth, which no longer has to be preoccupied with fear or not knowing what this is or worrying about managing it. You just figure out how it works. It's fairly simple, own it, and then you can have all of your bandwidth to focus on your craft and not have or have less of that background stress of how am I going to pay rent? Am I going to do this forever? You know, all the stresses that come with the financial ups and downs of freelance life.
Mhm. Mhm. If I hear you describing how many expenses there are though and how little is left of the pay at the end, like what is the solution? How do we make this work? What are some strategies that have worked for you?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. I've learned a lot by sort of listening to the reactions I've got from my audience, particularly with the last few weeks of some social media content that I've put out, and the videos that feel like a complaint. Oh my gosh, I made $30,000 at Rome Opera and I came home with 3,000. Get a ton of engagement. And the follow-up videos where I say, here's what we do about that and here's how we make it better, don't get as much. And
Are they just
that's
silently learning from you and they're complaining on the first one like, "Yeah, that's terrible.
I
It's so awful to be a freelancer."
Well, I feel like it is on the one hand, it's probably great for people that aren't freelancers, for our freelance friends to say, "Look, this is what it's really like," and the people that don't do our kind of job are like, "Oh my god, I didn't
Totally.
realize."
Like, "Why are you doing this?" Yeah.
But also, it can feel better to complain than it can to get up and try and do something about it. So hopefully, the motivation I can share with people is to do more than complain, because there are things that you can do. If you do, if you get offered $30,000 for a contract, before you say yes, do a budget. Take a week, take a few days, look up Airbnbs, look up flights, make yourself a budget for how much preparation you're going to need to do, what's it going to cost you to eat for the length of your contract while you're there. And if you come back and say, look, I'm going to come home with a couple $1,000s, you have serious leverage to go into negotiations with the person who offers you the contract and say, well, look, can you raise the fee by 10%? Can you cover my flights? Can you cover a rental car? Can you give me an extra performance fee for a rehearsal fee? Because every contract offer, every gig offer, anywhere, forever, is negotiable, period.
Mm.
That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you'll get what you want, but it means that you should always ask. Because, if someone raises your performance fee by 10%, that could end up doubling your take home pay. And also, if you have more experience with the roles or the company or the material, or you've worked with the director before, there's always leverage to try and negotiate more. And then also just to control your expenses, to know that you need to look for the cheaper Airbnb than, the one with a sauna or whatever, so that you can save some money. Part
The
of that
sauna is
is,
part of my recovery strategy, Ben. Come on, I need the
I know,
sauna. Don't
I
do this.
know,
Yeah.
I love it. It's so good. But and also part of the not just getting one better contract and negotiating a better fee once, but negotiating a better fee so that you can set aside a predetermined percentage of your gross fee. If you're making $30,000 on a show, the first bill that you should pay is yourself. The person whose money 10 years from now is the most important to you is you. So that's the bill you should pay. And if you can start putting aside 5, 10, 20% of your gross income, that is how you really alleviate that background stress of having no plan and living gig to gig and wondering how it's all going to shape up, because you'll see that money grow. You'll learn about investing from setting that money aside and doing what you do with it. And that just gives you a cushion and confidence and a safety net. So there are lots of things you can do to improve your situation incrementally over the short term and the long term as a freelance musician. Um, if you can just push past the boohoo, it's hard to get jobs, and when I do, they don't pay well. That's true. It is true. But complaining doesn't do any good. You have to do something about it. You have to choose to learn the rules of the game so you can play it well and achieve your version of victory, whatever that may be.
Mhm. I saw you talking about investing on a reel recently, and you were saying, whether you have $1, $2, get it in the S&P, enjoy it when you're 65. Is that what you mean when you say pay yourself, put some in
hmm
stocks, emergency funds? Like what's working for you? What strategies have you seen the biggest result by?
I mean, literally just setting aside a percentage of the money that I earn. When I get a gig offer, the first thing I do in my budget is take out, for me, I like to my goal is 20%. So if I'm offered $10,000, no, I wasn't. I was offered 8, because 2,000 of that I don't get to touch, I don't get to see, I don't get to think about, period. And if I can't afford to take that job while saving 20%, then my next job, I'll make up the difference as if it was the internet bill or rent or something like that. You must do it, period. It's the easiest thing in the world to not do, and to knock that out as like, oh, well, save overhead. You can't do it. You can't, because
That's interesting.
there are so many people, famous performers in every discipline, people that we know that have wildly successful careers, and the day they stop, they have nothing to show for it but a stack of programs with their name in them and some memories, and they have to scramble to go get a new job, start a new career in 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it may be. And that is, I mean, other than never pursuing your dreams, that is as big a tragedy as I think there is,
Mm.
because that's purely just a lack of, knowledge about what to do with your money, and maybe a lack of discipline as well. I think the thing I mentioned in that video that you referenced is, when is the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is
Exactly.
30 years ago or today.
Mm.
If you don't have a 30-year-old tree to sit in the shade of, plant a tree today, because 30 years from now you will. And the much more pragmatic approach to that is, I graduated high school in 2004, and I got some money for graduation. I didn't get $1,000, but if I had saved up $1,000 and bought Apple stock with it in June of 2004, you know how much it would be worth in 2026?
I don't. Yeah.
$600,000. It'd be worth
Yeah.
600 grand. So, not all stock is Apple stock, but if you can invest $1,000 today and forget you have it for 25 years, chances are you'll end up buying yourself a house.
Hopefully not at 65. Hopefully we can afford our houses before 65.
Yeah, right.
No, I spoke yesterday at the Vocal Institute for University of Kentucky, and I told them these kids are 16, 17. I said, listen to me, take $50 a month as soon as you turn 18 and get it in the
Yes.
S&P. And I said, when you're 65, you can call me and take me out on your yacht, and we'll go for a nice
Yes.
dinner, and you can buy me lunch. And they look at me with these big eyes, like, who is this lady? What's she talking to me about? But it's true. The compound interest. I think many musicians don't invest because we are holding on to everything that we currently have because
Mhm.
there are so many expenses. Life has gotten really expensive in the last few years as well.
For sure. It definitely has. But, that's really part of the big difference is, there's a lot of conversation, rightfully so, about income inequality and the haves and the have-nots. And I really think that one of the big delineations between those two groups are the people that invest their money and the people that don't. There are a lot of wealthy people in the world, and I promise you don't have to cheat or exploit to get rich, or just to be financially stable and to build your own wealth. The only difference is just learning the very, very simple fundamental basics about how that work, investing a little bit of your money, and then your money starts to work for you instead of the
Mm,
other way around. You park
mhm,
$50 in the bank and you earn, or say $100, you earn 7% interest every year, roughly. So next year, your $100 is 107. And basically, after 10 to 12 years, your money will double. And then another 7 years, it'll double again. And that's just, that's not a loophole for the rich, and that's not becoming an oligarch. That's just knowing how the system works. It's designed to benefit people exactly like us, to help us build wealth. And so, yeah, I'm very passionate about that. And of course, there's a lot in the book that covers the student loan aspect of that too, and judging what to borrow for, how much to borrow, and having a good handle on what the market is like and what you can expect to earn and what it will actually look like for you to pay back that money when the bill comes due. I mean, you wouldn't rent an apartment, buy a house, buy a car, take out any kind of loan if you didn't know what the monthly payment would be.
mhm.
Unfortunately, we have 17-year-olds taking out six figures of debt who have never paid a bill in their life. And that's another aspect of this that's certainly worth trying to approach. And hopefully, folks will learn from the book about that as well.
Yeah, I saw another piece of content where you said, be very careful about which school you choose because, well, I think this was your hook because I slightly disagreed when you said no one cares where you studied. I was like, oh, that's a good hook, Ben. But
Yeah.
I understand the idea behind that. It maybe matters much less than we think it does in
Yeah.
the early stages. Yeah, can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. Look, if you go to Juilliard, first of all, you will bump into more gatekeepers, more directors, more casting agents, more of everything. And if someone just sees the name Juilliard on your resume, yeah, you might be more likely to get the audition. That's where it ends. If you walk through the door and you can't dance or sing or act as well as the kid from Northern Iowa State, that's it. And I hope that was worth the 65 grand a year you paid for that education. The other thing is that I was on my strange path that I described. I didn't really enter the semi-professional opera world until I was like 25 or 26. I have friends who went to Juilliard at 18 who are now nearing 40, and they still feel like they're trying to break out of that first impression that they gave to the folks at Juilliard who still think of them as a high school kid, basically.
Mm.
So maybe ask yourself if you are ready to make your best impression on those biggest stages, in those bigger markets. Do you want to be a little more worldly wise, have a little better technique, a little more experience before you go to the bright lights big city and try and break into the biggest scene? There's a lot to consider. And also how flexible and adaptable you will be able to be in the early stages of your career if the only expenses you have to worry about are rent, or if it's rent and a $1,200 a month student loan bill. That's simply going to change your outlook and what options you have available to you, because you have to pay that bill, period. You can declare bankruptcy twice and your student loans will follow you. So, that's a lot. That's a lot to take on as a 17, 18-year-old. But again, as I mentioned, it's a decision that you certainly do not want to make with only your heart. You want to make it with as clear a picture of the financial situation and also what it's really like for people in your field out there, and what you'll have to do and what sacrifices you'll have to make to manage whatever debt you do take on.
Mhm.
It's tricky.
Mhm. Yeah.
Obviously, like every topic we've covered just comes back to there is so much more to this than just being a good artist. You have to be that, but if you have that, you're gonna have to deal with all these other things as well.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's good to have a healthy dose of reality check, which is what I feel like the book is. Okay, you already mentioned no one in conservatory taught you these things, or at least when we were in school, we weren't learning these things. Luckily, the next generation is getting more and more of this education.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurial has popped up across faculties everywhere. But let's say you are developing the curriculum for year one bachelor's students. What are you taking from your book? What's the first thing you're telling them?
I mean, honestly, when I put this book together, um, it's really kind of more of like a freelancer's almanac. If you need to check what the tax rate is for non-residents in Switzerland, or you want to do some agent troubleshooting or whatever, you can flip to that section of the book. But I also constructed it basically as like a beginning to end textbook for music students. I mean, the first section of the book is, okay, you got offered a gig. Should you take it? Well, what questions do you ask yourself? Is this a Are you collaborating with people who you can do your best work with? Is this a gig that fits your style and what you have to offer? And then doing the budget. What are your expenses going to be? How do you decide if the budget doesn't really work out and you're not really going to make much money and they won't budge? And through from there. I mean, honestly, I think you can start at the very beginning and take you through the whole process. Um, you know, not to toot
Yeah.
my own horn, but I mean, it's very clear, like deciding on whether or not to take work, how to budget it, how to manage the money, how to manage the agent, when to get the agent, all of that stuff. I think it's all in there. And there's also an invitation in the book that if there's a question that you have or a subject you could add to or wasn't covered, to let me know, because I really want it to be as broadly useful as it can be to as many folks as possible. And that's partly because if you get on Amazon and you Google books about freelance finance for performers or entrepreneurship for freelance performers, there's one book on that subject, and it's the one we're talking about. There's nothing else out there, which is wild.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this is definitely the book I've seen the most about finances and the heavy stuff. I think like the taxes and the accountant and the agent. I know Beyond Talent from Angela Miles Beeching has been super informative, but that's also talking about artist branding and the bio and the
Mhm.
content strategy and networking and pitching. And I'm not sure that this book covers the entrepreneur, like that's how we've always defined entrepreneurship, the
Yeah.
taking initiative, taking action, but you're really focusing on the heavy hitting like money and bottom lines and budgets and taxes. And so I think this is extremely necessary if I read through the table of contents with your pay and your expenses and your basic business taxes. Can you talk a little bit, was there a moment where you realized you couldn't take a gig that previously would have been like an instant yes, and then thanks to
Mhm.
your new skills and tools, you were like, "Oh, hang on a second, press pause."
Yeah, yeah, totally. Actually, last summer when I was writing the tax section of this book, I got offered a chance to sing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with a orchestra in Brazil, and it seemed like a pretty good payday. And for gigs that are really far flung like that, they did the very, very rare thing, which is offer to fly me business class down there, which sounds amazing. Sounds like 6.5 feet tall, so that's always a bonus. Um, but because of the work I'd done, the first thing I looked up was the non-resident tax withholding, and it was like 25%. And then when I paired that, well, okay, well, 25%, I'll pay 15% in the US. I'm going to owe my agent 15% because it's a concert. So right off the bat, I was down 55%. Best case scenario, I'm going to take home less than half of this offer. And then I broke that down like per concert and the time I was missing. And I was like, I mean, no, I don't really want to. I would work my butt off and do a bunch of traveling for like 2 weeks, and I'd come home with maybe half a month's rent or something, and I'd rather stay home and skip the paperwork and the Brazilian tax return and all that stuff. Um, but anyway, I mean, I realize that is a position of privilege, and oftentimes, um, we do feel compelled or are simply compelled by the financial situation to take every gig that comes our way. And again, that's another reason to circle back to the financial side of things, because I have a very different idea of FU money, right? My version of FU money isn't I'm gonna ride off into the sunset flipping you the bird in my brand new Ferrari. It's not that. The FU money is being financially stable enough to not have to take every gig, to be able to work
Mm.
your way back to making the art you want to make because you want to, and not because you have bills to pay. And if you build up some financial stability over time, it will help you build that ability, which is really nice. Because sometimes Emerson, was it Emerson or Thoreau? I think it was Thoreau, said, "Too many men die with a song still in them." And I love that. But that's not us. We sing for a living. But the thing is,
My
the
song is out there. There's no song in
yeah,
my heart. It's out there. Okay.
but the thing is, the opposite can also be true. You have
Okay.
you have music in you, and if you've been squeezing every penny out of your voice or your violin or your dancing chops or your acting chops for years, at a certain point there's no more juice to squeeze out of a lemon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and that's so, it's another way of talking about burnout, but that's something to be managed. And honestly, like so many things in the arts, to sing brighter, you have to sing darker or whatever. Sometimes to become a better, more free artist, you have to become a better business person. Um,
Mm.
and again, it will help you develop a sense of control, and that leads to confidence, and that leads to a more open bandwidth, and that gives you the opportunity to, I think, be a better artist in a lot of different ways. And so that's the gospel I'm trying to spread.
Kind of like how rules give freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Like we as people, just like if you have a puppy, it feels bad to yell at your puppy and point your finger, but dogs want structure. They need to know, "Hello, puppy."
She destroyed my garbage today, so she deserved to get yelled at, but she didn't.
Yeah. Oh. Well, just like us, we want structure to some degree, and in a way, there's a healthy balance of that. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
agree.
reminds me, Julia Cameron in her book, The Artist's Way, she says that if you're putting all of your earnings on your art, it's a really fast way to crush the artist part of your heart because there's so much pressure.
Yeah, yeah, certainly there can be, and you know, that's I've also heard a lot of discussion in some different social media channels about people pushing back against that old narrative that we've all heard. If you can be happy doing anything else, then don't be. Which I agree is bogus. I think that's a
Oh, you do? Okay,
little.
good,
Yeah, I
good.
think that's a little hyperbolic, but it's not that far from the truth.
Mm.
A way I heard that a similar sentiment described to me was, and I don't mean to be negative. There are many beautiful experiences and positive collaborators and everything like that. But this is true. In the course of your career, you will have bad roles, bad directors, conductors, productions, flights, Airbnbs, colleagues, costumes, lighting, rehearsal schedules. You'll have a lot of annoying stuff.
Mm.
If getting on stage and doing your thing doesn't make all of that worth it, that's when you know you should be doing something else. You're going to be away from home. You're going to miss weddings, funerals, holidays, birthdays, sicknesses, bachelor parties, and you're going to have all those other things. But if getting on stage and doing your thing doesn't make you go, "Oh, this is why I do it. My cup is full," you have some questions to ask yourself. And if you don't keep that good balance in your life of not squeezing too much juice out of the fruit, and you don't have your money right so that you can know that you're building something sustainable over the long term, it's a lot harder for getting on stage and doing your thing to be worth it. If there's no more juice in the fruit, it's not going to feel worth it. It's just going to feel like you're a blue collar worker, which isn't always a bad thing unless you're doing work that has to come from a deep, rich, vibrant place in your soul. And if you let that burn out, then you're in trouble. And so take care of your money and hopefully it won't.
I have heard that saying so many times, if you can do anything else, do that. And I agree with you. It's hyperbolic. And also I've rolled my eyes at it. But I don't know if I've heard it described so much as if you can't handle kind of the garbage side of the career. I mean, my back is still twisted up from the train last week, I'm sure. So yeah, if
Yeah.
being on stage isn't worth it. I do have that moment always when the audience is coming out and I'm greeting them at the door, because that's when I get this moment of seeing the reactions and feeling that emotion of the experience that we just had together. And I always tell myself it's always a little like 10:30 at night. I'm a little bit deranged because I just played, and I'm like, remember this. This is the moment. Like, hold on to
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Totally. For me, sometimes that moment is the curtain call. Like a day of a show can be stressful. You wake up at 8 o'clock and you're like, it's opening day, let's go. Oh, wait, no, I have to chill for the next 11 hours and just rest. And then you have the moments in your dressing room where you're like, oh, I'm nervous. Is it going to go okay? Oh, no, wait, I'm the one they hired. I'm the only person in the world who's been rehearsing this every day for the last month. Everyone in the room wants me to succeed. Deep breaths, muscle memory, here we go. And you go do it, and it's stressful, and the high note wasn't perfect and all this, but you come out at the curtain call and you go, it's kind of cool that at my job once a day, first of all, I go to work 2, 3 days a week. And when I do, 1,000 people stand up and cheer and clap. Like, that's cool. That's cool. And for me, the stage door thing is always very flattering, but it also reminds me how happy I am that there's no such thing as famous, really, in opera. If you talk to someone who's not an opera singer and they go, "Oh, there's famous operas. Okay, who's your favorite opera singer?" And they always say somebody who's been dead for 50 years. You know what I mean?
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah. In other words, like if every door you walked out of for the rest of your life was like walking out of the stage door after a performance where people you didn't know or wanted to shake your hand and take a picture with you, that's my personal hell. So I think
That's funny.
actual true fame would be hell for me. But it's nice
Okay.
to get like this tiny little dose of it where people come and share with you what your work meant to them. It's really cool. It's a good spot.
That's funny. I have to say that's a very good healthy mindset that you described before going on stage of, I'm the only person in the world who's been training for this night, this performance, this city. I'm the one who knows it best. I was invited here. I was
Mhm.
asked to be here. I didn't break in.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a great mental script to have before you go on.
Yeah, and there's no one in the world more prepared to do this at this moment than you. And again, going back to the fear thing, if this goes as poorly as it possibly could, if I biff every high note and get sick and crap out at intermission, I mean that sucks. But it's not the end of your career. It's going to be okay. You'll get another chance. Like if the absolute worst, if you forget all the words during your aria, I mean, there might be an intendant who's like, "Hey, don't do that again." It might cost you 1 or 2 opportunities, but if you don't lose the fire and you just keep at it, the people who succeed are not always the most talented. They're usually the most determined and the most unwilling to quit. Period.
Mm, mm.
So keep that in mind.
Love that. What have I not asked you about the book that you wanted to mention today?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it is helpful to mention that the book is really helpful if you're, say, a high schooler considering going to university. It's just as helpful if you have been a freelance road dog for the last 20 years, like me. There's still stuff in there. Like I've been doing I've been focused on the sort of entrepreneurial and financial side of this career for more intensely and for maybe longer than many of my colleagues. I still learned a lot by doing the research to write this book, and so I think that there's certainly transformative information in there for everyone that will help you be a more confident artist, more financially stable, and retire if you want
Yes,
to.
retire rich with a yacht. We love
Yeah,
that.
well, I mean, maybe if you do it really, really well, but just the fact that like there really is freedom in there, a kind of financial freedom that we have, artistic freedom to express and be ourselves that very few people have. Oftentimes that comes with a lack of the financial stability and freedom, or at least that's what people think. You can have both, but you've got to add it to your skill set, and you've got to overcome your hesitance or your fear around approaching the subject, because again, it's not that scary. It's not that bad.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for being an advocate for healthy financial literacy for musicians everywhere. I
Yeah,
want to
you're
encourage
welcome.
everybody to grab a copy of the book. How can they do that?
So you can go to the website makingitworkbook.com. I tried to buy makingitwork.com, but they wanted like $90,000. So it's
That is not in the financial plan for this season.
I
No,
know.
definitely not. Okay.
So some people have said, "Oh, it's a workbook." No, it's Making It Work book. But it's also, if you type in Making It Work on Amazon, it's the first one to pop up. And yeah, if you give it a read, shoot me a message, leave a review on Amazon. It really helps. And we're on all the social platforms too: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Are you in
Making It
TikTok?
Workbook. Oh yeah,
Good for
it's all
you.
on there. It's all on
All
there.
right, let's
I
go.
mentioned in the book, I keep social media in a folder on my phone called Time Poison because I really don't like it. I did not intend to try and become some kind of social media person, but it's I want to make sure that people can find out about the book and get it out there. So that's the path.
Mr. Ben Bliss on Instagram, what is one action point that people can do today based on what you've shared with us?
I think one thing you can do today is to take that first step into your financial life. It's like, I don't have any children, but people that do have children, my friends, have said there is never a good time. There's just the time where it happens. And I think the same is true for investing. Um, if you wait until you have a bunch of extra money, then you probably missed the boat. I've been in this situation. If you have $4 in your bank account today, seriously, I've been in that position for much longer, a longer percentage of my life than I certainly wish. If you got $4 in the bank, open a Robinhood account and put $1 in it today. And you don't have to put another dollar in there for a week or a month, but put $1 a month in there, put $1 a week, up it to 10, 50, 100. It will sort of gradually teach you how that stuff works. You'll see it grow, you'll see it shrink sometimes, and you'll start to understand that it's not all that terribly confusing. And then by the time you do have bigger bucks to invest, you will have learned the ropes and you'll know how it works. And you will have begun to build your financial stability. And whether you use that to step back and only do gigs you want to do for artistic reasons at some point, or if you're 16 and you want to save up money for your big German audition tour after grad school when you're 23 or 24, that's how you do it. So yeah, that would be the action point. Invest $1 today. That's it.
I
That's
love
how
that.
you
We need an
start.
affiliate link for you, Ben, that you're promoting this investor app. So you
Yeah,
get
well,
to, you need.
yeah, I mean, if Robinhood wants to sponsor, it's great. But Robinhood's incredible. It's never been easier to invest. You sign up there with I think a driver's license and a bank account, and you're good to go.
All right. Well, we'll get their people on the phone and start paying you out for all of this great advertising. Thank you so much. This has been really informative. And everybody go check out the book. Follow Ben on Instagram. And we'll
Yes,
see you in
thank
the
you
next
so much.
episode. Thank you,
Yeah,
Ben.
I love it. Big fan of the podcast. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Fearless Artist Podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share this podcast with a friend. To join our membership or one of our coaching programs, visit our website at thefearlessartistmastermind.com. This episode was produced by Pokey Huang at PH Media Studios in New York City. We're Deanna and Michelle, encouraging you to create your own opportunities and to go after what you want. You have what it takes to build the career of your dreams. Until next time, be fearless.